Out in the hot Marble Mountain Desert emerges a brand new city. A city I've been wanting to build for far too long. But I think I can now. With the new ground textures, I think that this is going to open up a whole new way of showing how the natural landscape influences our city development. Now that we can finally make different types of environments, I want to do something completely different. A small, regional city in the middle of the desert. The layout influenced by harsh mountains and eroded rivers, surrounded by ancient salt flats and miles away from the main city. This is going to be a really interesting build. This is only really the beginning of a lot of builds we end up doing out this way, so if you've got any ideas for anything else we should do, please do let me know. And this place definitely needs a name, so also leave your ideas below. But what is that relationship like between the natural and urban environment in such a harsh landscape like the desert? We'll talk a bit about it today. I'll leave a bit up to you guys as well, and explore the rest of it in future episodes. Okay, so just to give you some context as to where we're going to be working, we've got San Aurelio off in the distance, where we've been spending most of our time building up the city. But Marble Mountain, the series, is not all about just building a city. It's also about all the environment and the distant towns and bits and pieces you find within a whole region. We do already have a highway and train line heading off in that direction. It's a nice slow transition from that temperate environment going through the valley and then heading towards what is the desert. And I think at about this point, this is where the highway and the train line are going to cross over this ridge and the whole valley is going to open up. To get these two into our town, we are looking at a pretty steep elevation change. It is pretty extreme, and that's not too bad for a road, especially one that is as narrow as this one. This feels like an old road, the old road that would have made its way into our little town down here, and, cars can handle that. But a train, not so much so. And when we do eventually build the highway, the major highway that might even bypass the town at some point, that'll probably cut through some of this and we'll have to do much larger swoopy motions, but I will need to consider how that train line is going to navigate all of it as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our sand texture and I'm going to start mapping out where I think we can start dragging out the road and then also the train line. And I've just ignored all existing topography because I much prefer figuring out the infrastructure and then I usually figure out the environment afterwards. And I know that's not really what happens in reality, but I find it just a little bit more easier and I can create a bit more realistic looking areas when I spend a bit of time figuring out that infrastructure first. And speaking of which, I think the path is going to work pretty well. I'll grab the level tool and I'm going to level a good chunk of all this, but then I will raise up certain sections so that it's not just, completely flat. I'm also going to use the sand texture to map out where I think the water would trickle down these mountains. I do think that most of the time it's going to be dried up, but it's going to be something important to consider when we do start to build our towns. And even just that is really helping shape the rest of the environment. I can see how all that water coming off Marble Mountain feeds into this valley and runs into this salt flat. This salt flat still needs a bit of work, but you can imagine all up here is going to be a little bit higher up, which it already kind of is. So I will continue to terraform this and get an idea of how all that's going to look. But just as a general plan, I think that really opens things up and gives me a pretty good idea of where certain parts of the environment are going to sit. And you can see now how out of sync we are with the topography and where I want everything to sit when all of it is terraformed. So what I think I'm going to do, and this will take just a little bit of time, I'm going to flatten pretty much everything that I think is going to not be a mountain. And now that I've got the lowest point and a bit of an idea of where the flattest parts are going to be, I'm going to add in the peaks of the mountains to whereabouts I think they will sit, kind of giving a good little spot for these valleys and where the water is going to come down to. And in terms where I'm going to be building this thing, I think that we've got enough to work with in terms of the topography and where I think the mountains are going to sit and the valleys and the water, which will all influence the way that this thing is developed and the way that I'm going to be working it into the environment. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really nice, but I do need to connect them up. And then once we have that road and that train line coming down through the valley and into this area, then we can start developing it. Ooh, I tell you what, I'm getting super sucked into nature skylines and I could do this all day, every day, but I'm gonna pull myself away because otherwise this is all you're gonna get. Yeah, I probably need to build a town. I really want to build a town. There's just one more thing I want to do. And then I will have to work on this a little later because, yeah, otherwise we're not gonna get very far. I think it'd be kind of fun to put 2 different types of bridges here. Ooh, what about a truss bridge? That would be super lovely. I'll just remove these segments so that we can drag him out to his fullest potential. Let's use some of these props by Joe Erskine and make this a little bit more custom. Another highway bridge just feels a little bit off to me, so I'm gonna convert it back into just a regular old bridge. But I think I'm just gonna leave it there because, once again, we are not gonna get to this town if I don't start it now. We'll start with the main road, continuing this highway as he stretches into town. The highway does cross another river. As you can see, we do have this section that is a little bit lower down, and I do think that we'd have a lot of water coming down here when it rains, so I have to make this section elevated. That also goes for the train line, which for the longer stretch as it goes down the mountain has been a single track, but I think as it comes into town we should probably widen it up. So I'm going to convert it into 2 tracks. And at this point I'd like it to be on the same angle as the main road. And then for the grid, I'm going to keep this really simple, which is, unlike me, I do end up getting a little bit wacky with my grids, but I'm taking inspiration from, a bunch of different places around California, but yeah, Palm Springs is the main one. And then this mountain, there's so many mountains around here, and then all these waterways as you can see them from Google Earth and how they all carve this space out. It's just so interesting. And the grid down here is very square. It's just a bunch of squares all over the place. You can see these main roads as they kind of square off the block, and I'm going to be doing something really similar. I think that the only anomaly is going to be this angle of the main road, but I don't think we're going to be following that at all. And I do think it kind of makes sense, if you were to look at the contours of the landscape. Let's cut straight to the chase and upgrade this road so that we can support more traffic. And let's use this as our grid angle. In a nutshell, that's kind of it for layout. I could add an extra one here or, something like that. I'll definitely add some farms and some snaky little roads as they go further off into the environment. I was a little bit nervous about scale and if I had enough space to put a town here and, some extra ones, I want to add some extra ones. But now seeing this down here, I think we've got heaps of space. It just really goes to show when you play around with scale and think about where certain aspects of your environment are going to go. You can really fit in quite a lot within these maps. Let's start getting some buildings down here. Now I'm imagining that this is going to be kind of the foundation of the city. So we'll need to find some historical buildings to place down, and I would like to start with a church and a train station. I do want this to be totally self-sufficient, no connections to San Aurelio, that is its own thing. This needs to be doing its own thing. So all the city services do need to be accounted for. But I think we start a little bit more historical. And I do want this town to feel fairly modern. You can imagine a whole bunch of strip malls and fast food joints and just a whole bunch of modern development around here. So in terms of historical buildings, we're starting to run a little dry. But there are a couple of other ones that I do want to place down. I just downloaded this administration building by Duff and it's pretty great. It's exceptional. And amongst the old, we've also got some newer additions, like this big servo on the corner, which I think is pretty fitting. The plants, for once, work really well. And then also a motel and a big shopping complex, and then this little guy. Wait, a green roof? Green? Get out of here. Orange or red? It's that simple. But now that we've got a bit of commercial and some services down, I do need to figure out a bit of an industrial zone. And I'm going to put it out of the city. This is what we always do, right? We put it out of the city. So I'll probably do something around here, along the train line too, which I think makes a bit of sense. And a bit over here as well. And maybe a power station. Hey, $2. Did you just zone? I did. And I'll do it again if you're not careful. I think I'm gonna zone most of this town. In terms of what we're gonna be seeing down here, it's gonna be pretty simple stuff. A lot of fast food joints, a lot of strip malls. I think the housing is gonna be pretty basic as well. And the grids, for the first time ever, are actually kind of perfect. So yeah, I'm gonna zone. Kind of wild, because I never zone. Around Palm Springs, the residents are really interesting. A lot of single family housing, a lot of larger houses, and pretty much everyone has a pool. It might even just be mandatory. Palm trees are definitely mandatory, so I'll have to place down a whole bunch of them. But yeah, Palm Springs gives me the impression that this is a pretty wealthy place, especially if you can afford to live in one of these houses. Gee whiz. I can't really say the same for down here. We're definitely looking at pretty low land value, at least for the very beginnings. I want to encourage some pretty large houses, so I'm trying to leave lots of space here. In fact, I could probably split this into just 2 sections here. We'll do a little cul-de-sac on either end. I'll remove zoning on these roads here. I just want houses growing on these streets. We'll do the same on this side. I've criticized this tool before, but that was actually really useful. I am going to zone this with low density waterfront housing. Now that seems a little bit silly because we are nowhere near the water, but I do feel like this is going to be the closest to the type of architecture that I want. I'm going to zone all of these areas. I don't think I'm going to zone our cul-de-sacs. I think it's going to be much easier and much better if we place it down. Along here, I'll do medium density. And the more obscure shapes, I'm going to leave for hand placing, just because I think I'm going to have way more control. Like here, and here, and here. This will most probably be a park, but I feel confident enough to hit play and see people move in. Okay, so far so good. I'm trying to be okay with what's going on down here in terms of the zoning. I don't love it. I might hand place these. I really think I'm going to, because I mean, this is just the limitations with zoning. I don't know how you guys do it. I really cannot. Over here though, it's okay. I mean, the houses over here, I mean, this is perfect. So I can see myself zoning houses. I can't see myself zoning other parts though. I mean, maybe industry. Yeah, I'm trying to be okay with all this stuff. I'm really not okay. That's okay though. What's not okay though, I can tell that this is going to be problematic. So what I'm gonna do, and it probably won't help. I mean, are people even gonna use this? But we could use a train station. Palmdale has a pretty nice looking train station. I don't know if anyone uses it, but it's bloody lovely. We don't really have anything quite as nice, but I think we should just get one down, and I am probably going to detail it. Maybe make something a little bit more custom. For now, I think I'm just going to go for the local train station, mostly because it is perfect. I mean, look at how well it aligns up. And I was just coming into the city to check on our train as he picks up some people from our central station and will eventually make its journey out into our desert. But I did just notice that we do have quite a lot of people heading out this way. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna get a little bit congested around here, especially when we transition to one lane of traffic in either direction. So yeah, we're probably gonna have to upgrade this at some point so that we can actually handle a little bit more traffic than this. I mean, maybe even our train line might even need to be upgraded at certain points. But for now, let's press on. I would like to continue to add more residents to our town, and well, I mean, geez, we kind of have to. This is my tree neighborhood. I reckon the developers probably sold it as a tree concept. Wouldn't you like to live in a tree? Yeah, why not? And then I've also got a couple of other little plot sections, and I did go through and do a little bit more plopping because it just makes things look a little bit more thoughtful and detailed. And when we do add some trees, it's going to be real nice. In fact, I don't think I'm going to do too much more in terms of single family housing, at least for the time being. We do still need some residents, so I'm going to add in not single family, but let's go for some more medium density. These buildings are pretty much the perfect fit. I am even splicing them in together so we do have double the amount. Oh, that's perfect. That's fulfilled the medium density, but not really the high density. But I don't really want to build anything like that around here. I kind of like that this is our largest and tallest building, but I do think we need some other buildings with just a bit more of a larger footprint. Something we need is a hospital. This one is pretty large, but in terms of the upgrades, I think that this is going to be a good future-proof for future developments around here. I mean, especially if we do end up building more towns around this area, this will just be like the main hospital. And even a helipad, I think, is going to be really useful for this area. So that is a good fit. We could also use a little bit more retail. I really like the fact that this actually has an angle on the same angle as the road that comes in. So that's a pretty good fit. What else can we find? A couple of extra neighborhoods and some extra services, which I'll check out in just a moment. We've got our train coming in, and it's really encouraging seeing quite a few people actually making this journey into this place. 20? Okay, I take that back. That's not much at all. But there are a few people jumping on. I mean, I'm sure this is way more people than in reality. I don't think many people catch the train out to Palmdale or out into some of those areas out of LA. Please let me know if I'm wrong there, but I get the impression that most people are driving. Most people are driving here as well, as you can see, which we'll touch on in just a moment. But I've gone through and added in some extra services and also a few offices as well, a few complex areas and a lot of surface parking, which I'm gonna continue to lean into. So yeah, pretty much every single building that I'm placing down, I'm also adding in some extra surface parking because it is just sort of that place. We've got a couple of schools with capacity in mind. We can upgrade this when we need to cater for a few more students, quite a few more students, and I reckon at some stage we'll most likely have to. I mean, at this stage, the city, and yes, I am going to be calling this a city, isn't really that big, but once we start seeing more people within this region, and I mean really within this region, these schools are going to be the ones that people go to. And I do think we'll probably have other ones, but these will end up being the biggest ones and the main ones. That is why we've left them on some pretty large blocks. They do still need some detail. In fact, the whole place needs some detail, which we will get into in just a little while. I've also added in a recycling center, no detail, just plopped it. And this other building, which is just so great. I mean, it is such a excellent fit within this space. I mean, it almost fits in perfectly here, but I really love seeing this angle. I feel like if you are driving in, I mean, the angle of it makes a lot of sense for me. So yeah, I do need to clean up a couple of bits and pieces, and I am just holding off detailing our train station, even though it really bothers me. I mean, it is detailed, but it is representing a very plain train station. And maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need anything too flash, but I do kind of want something a little bit flasher. So we're getting really close to detailing, but there's just a couple more things I'd like to tackle. First of all, this is always going to be a problem, and I think that we are going to see an improvement when eventually a highway will exist between San Aurelio and this place. So what I want to do in the meantime is just make a couple of little improvements. I could just place down a roundabout. It just doesn't feel very appropriate for an American city like this. I mean, really, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense at this very moment that this road is pointing in this direction because there's not really anything over here. I do think though, this was old infrastructure. I mean, this is where the highway goes, and we will eventually build more stuff over here. I'll probably even build some in just a moment. But yeah, I mean, in terms of where this is pointing towards a train station, I think that this is more center of town, but this is where more people are living. So, I mean, this is kind of center of town as well. So what I'm going to do is, because most people are turning left into here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give these guys a ramp that goes straight onto this road here. I also like the idea that people can walk across this bridge, so I'm going to use Road Builder to upgrade just one side of this bridge so that pedestrians can also use it. And that's fixed the problem, but I think it's a little bit goofy. I am going to try one last thing, which will be kind of just as goofy, but I don't know, I just want to give this a little go. Maybe instead we have some sort of intersection here, and if you are turning left into this road, then you can make your decision around here. We'll have a dedicated lane just like this. Yeah, I mean, this is probably just a different level of goofiness, but it works, and I do plan to put a little bit more down here. I mean, I could use some more tailored and timed traffic lights, but for now, this is kind of fine, and it is working. I do plan to extend this road. In fact, I think it's going to cross this river and go elsewhere. I mean, we could even have some other stuff around here, so yeah. I think that this level of infrastructure is kind of fine, at least for the time being. But I think now that we have the general layout down, let's turn this into a district and make all the services just target this area. That'll keep traffic a little bit more local. And now we're operating on a more local scale, which I think will just save on any of those unnecessary trips out to other places like San Aurelio. We should just see all of our services just operating locally, which is great. We do absolutely need a name, so please do let me know if you have any name suggestions. I do think something palm related is an absolute must. And it's interesting seeing some of these stats, seeing that the average wealth is poor, which I don't really want for this place. I think that I like this city to be a little bit more on the wealthier side of things. So we do absolutely need to bump that up. But I think what we need to do first is I think we need to bring this place alive and put a bit more time and effort into the detail. A lot of it is going to change, especially in terms of the places that I zoned. But a few places I am pretty happy with the general idea of where they sit and the idea of some of these areas. We could use some parks to bump up a bit of that wealth, a bit more green space around some of these houses, and for sure, an overhaul on the surrounding environment. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That is a wrap on that, my friends. Jeez. What a mission. I got so carried away with this. But I think that this is such a great start to a brand new place, a brand new city. I find it really hard to call this a city because it really is not at this very moment, but you can imagine when we do start to get into some more distant areas and farmland and other little bits and pieces around, then yeah, I mean, this is going to really feel like the center of all things. And I am really, really keen to get more into detail. Like you can see me getting into some more nature skylines, dragging out a couple of these paths just to kind of make a bit of a stream, and I don't love it in areas, but honestly, in other parts, from a little glance, it really is quite a good effect, especially when you do mix in some trees and some other surfaces, which I have done. I've also added in this little river that is now snaking its way down, and this is very much a work in progress, but I do have to put a pin in it because otherwise I will be here forever. But I am imagining that I might continue this to about this point, where we do have this one now kind of joining the action. And we could do one of these water systems. This is probably like a basin or I guess maybe flood control. I'm not really quite sure. If you do have any ideas, let me know. But I think it might be kind of fun to have something like that so that we can kind of end the river at some point and then make our way into a salt flat, which I'm still trying to figure out how on earth we're going to do. I've still got quite a lot of questions as to how I'm going to achieve some certain things, but as a whole, it's really starting to come together. I think adding in some grass in certain areas like around the park and also around some of the houses, but then also kind of leaning into the desert, because I do like the fact that you do have these really green areas, and then pretty much as soon as the environment kind of comes back into the picture, yeah, it's just straight back to the desert, which is kind of fun. I've also really worked on these cliffs and these mountains, and this really does take a long time, but I think that the end result is pretty nice. So I'm going to continue to work on all those cliffs and figure out how all this is going to start looking, but man, oh man, I am really happy with all of this progress. So I'm really interested to hear from you guys. Where else do we go with this place? What's this identity? Can you imagine this being a tourist destination? Is this a retirement destination? Do we add a whole bunch of farms around? Do we make it more run down? I also need to work on the train station, and there's a whole bunch of other little bits and pieces of detail to add, but I think for the time being, let's leave it here. Because the transformation it's pretty good. I'm really happy with all this progress, and I'm really happy that we can fit a town in what is a pretty small footprint, and then also include a lot of ideas and also a lot of ideas for the future too. I've already started to work on some of those ideas, but as you know, that is a story for the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching today's episode of Marble Mountain. It is always so greatly appreciated. A little reminder, if you are keen to dive into Marble Mountain and play the save game for yourself, there is a link to my Patreon and YouTube members page. That is where you can dive in and grab some of those save games if you are interested in supporting the channel and getting some extra bonuses. And speaking of some of those patrons and members, I want to give a special shout out to some of my beloved ones, some of my all-time longest supporters: Robert Maynard, Bulk Daktari, Mike and McFarlane, Christopher C. Penny, Oliver Assis, Benjamin David, Michael, and Yezin Wang. Hey guys, thank you so much, and I'll catch you all on the next one. See ya.